It's not a bad idea, the book. Just to let everyone know too, I am not booked for the next year or so, everything else, I'm good. It's my pleasure to be here today, really. It's always an honor to be able to speak at Unity. The diverse topics that Unity brings to spiritual growth is unique. And I know that because I've traveled around the circuit's not the right word, but different views of spiritual growth, and Unity is the very, very best at that by far. Today I'm going to dig up some awareness details to help us hopefully build a new way forward. So parts of this talk might be a little fact-oriented. I apologize for that. But here we go anyway. The New Renaissance is the title of my talk. And this month's theme at Unity is rejoice and rejoicing. Interesting word, that, especially in its context, I think. Right from the time Mr. Elwood asked me to talk and indicated that rejoicing was an important part of November for Unity, the word Renaissance popped right into my head, right? We talked about it on the phone. To rejoice, to be glad about, delight in all ways, old and new. And when you think of the words that we place re in front of, very interesting, I think, and very relevant, these words. For example, renew, release, remorse, remember, and so on. So on and on they go, right? And I thought for a long time, and even when I first thought of this concept, that re was just the root word and then just to repeat it. But I, being the research geek that I am, I looked up the words, and there actually is a clear intention to iterate and to re-evolve the process when you use re in front of the words. Rejoicing is also much more than just being happy. Just like solitude is much more than just being alone. Just an aside, I was going to say this, but there is a good book on joy if anybody wants to read it. It's my favorite. It's called Surprised by Joy by C.S. Lewis. If anybody wants to read that, it's a great one. In the same vein, happy, it seems to me, often relies upon externals in our life, whereas joy is more, the way I see it, a state of mind and a place in the heart. We like to be happy, but we long for joy, right? I like to rejoice now whenever I can. A lot of those times are right here with these people. So, Renaissance, which means rebirth from the French. I've been reading and writing a little bit on ideas and ways and means to express, maybe even humbly begin a modern version of saying. The original Renaissance had its source, of course, in the early 14th century and right to the end of the 18th century. It was characterized by an increasing failure of the Roman Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire, I almost said Holy Roller Empire. Sorry to the millions of Catholics, but my apologies. But to provide a stable, unifying framework for the organization of spiritual growth for people, and material growth as well. It also saw the rise of the importance of city-states, national monarchies, refinement of national languages, and the breakup of the old feudal system. The Renaissance in Europe produced such positives as modern printing, astronomy, the rise of a stable middle class, which cannot be discounted, and the explosion, of course, of fine arts, from Rembrandt, Da Vinci, Mozart, to Shakespeare, just to name a few. I wonder what our new rebirth might look like or produce. The way I'm thinking now, it's more like what have we already produced and that we need to utilize better. Like the internet, for example. like our move to less reliance on traditional banking systems. I think we've clearly reenacted, probably inadvertently, a feudal system today, in the last 100 years or so. I've been feeling for a while now that wouldn't we benefit from a new structure, voice, and language that the entire world could communicate and connect with. I know it sounds like a dream a little bit, but does anybody remember the original attempt at a universal language? Esperanto, exactly. Ludwig Zemnov, his name was. He was a linguist. And he, when we were kids, right, we heard about it, we even tried it. This is kind of cool, this is great, this is going to work. Never caught on. This can be done again. It's just waiting for the leadership and the will to do these kind of things. So if anyone knows a linguist, just have them give me a call, see if we can work it in. I know these things in practice, and people know I'm a practical kind of guy, conjoining Asian and European Latin languages. These things are never easy. But my point here is that the format for these things, these type of things, are already there. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. They've already been developed. And in addition, is it not evident today that many of us see the need to displace current systems that we have in place, such as, I don't know, maybe monetary control by a very few who hold the purse strings, while many of us do with less and less? What's the relevance to us today, you might ask? It's a good question. Well, it leads directly to us, I would say, spiritually in every other way. Well, the spirit of the old Renaissance ultimately took many forms. It was firstly and best expressed by a movement called humanism. Humanism was initiated by secular men of letters such as Petrarch. Petrarch was an artist, and Dante, who was a philosopher and scientist, as opposed to the scholar church leaders at the time who dominated medieval life, intellectual and religious, for a millennium prior to that. Humanism had several significant features. Firstly, it took human nature and the entirety of nature, really, in all its manifestations and achievements as its subject. Today, we might call that pantheism, but it's different. Secondly, it stressed the unity and compatibility of all truths found in all philosophical and theological foundations, schools, and systems. This is a doctrine actually called syncretism. Syncretism is the formation of new ideas from multiple distinct sources, some of them even contradictory. Wicca is a good example of this, actually. I found in my research, consciously drawing from a variety of different pagan sources, such as alchemy, Western ceremonial magic, occult thought, etc. Also, humanism emphasized the dignity of the whole man, the extreme need of education, and it looked forward to a rebirth of a lost human spirit and wisdom. Those are kind of things that we could use today, I think. And I think we could revive a modern version of humanism. I don't see why not. People who came a little later in the stream, such as Goethe, René Descartes, the scientist, who had influence on Kepler and Lubitz, although they were all men of science, they all had an urgent need, they felt, to have broader places and means to express free ideas that can join both science and spirituality. This led the way to later European philosophies, such as demonstrated by people like John Locke and others, who in time founded the Enlightenment movement. Finally, it's getting to a point, right? Hopefully, Locke, in his early Enlightenment writings, even mentions Isaac Newton as one of his inspirations, interestingly enough. We too often broadly quote science, do we not? From Einstein to quantum physics. And I find it very interesting in my research again that I found from his own journals that Newton himself did not believe in the particles only clockwork type universe that he significantly helped create. He believed in God. He created calculus, and he created physics, but it was the others after who interpreted it to be the deterministic straitjacket that they found themselves in. Some of them still do. Later would come people such as Rudolf Steiner, in the 19th century, very notable as Steiner, whose credentials in this stream would include social reformer, the founder of the philosophy of freedom. That's one of his books, actually. He was a well-known clairvoyant and the founder of the Waldorf schools in Germany. These people had enormous influences on Henry David Thoreau and later Steiner, who had great impacts, of course, on the Fillmores, the Holmeses, and the Emma Curtis Hopkins. You may have heard of. All just history, I know. This is where it's kind of dry, but as a friend of mine in business, this is many years ago now, but I've never forgotten this, when he said, John, never tear down an old fence until you understand why it was built in the first place. And he wasn't talking about backyard fences. Neither are we, of course. A modern model of practical renaissance sounds to me like, although in different context today, the exact formula we need to re-envision anew so that we can all grow and transform tomorrow. I think it's very important for us, this is one of my critical points I want to make today, that we are in no small part, people sitting here in the larger unity group, flag bearers for those men and women who bravely first put forth these fundamental ideas of numinous human spirit. I point out the original connection between science and spirituality only because I feel the conjoining of these two is necessary for all of us to see the necessity of coming together. The tools of both bring are quite clear, really, and they're really not that difficult conceptually. I'm evidence of that. You know, I'm not a physicist, although I study a lot of these things, but if I can get it, anybody can. Suspicion, however, sadly still lingers in both camps, especially from old traditional science groups, sadly, who are mired in their own dogma, at least from those who refuse to see big pictures. Not in this group, of course. Not in this community, of course. I love the word dogma. I don't know why. I like saying it even. I don't think it's because I like dogs either, but I think it's just one of those things that I always remember a bumper sticker I saw down in the U.S. many, many years ago. Got behind a guy there and it said, "My karma ran over my dogma." I've never forgotten that one. But in reality, everyone has to hop on this non-dogmatic bus if we want to go where we need to go. That's what makes it impossible, though, I find, for some, right? And I hear this refrain, so do all of us from time to time. And it's usually accompanied by this: John, all that might be true, but we just don't have enough time. Well, I'm here to remind myself, publicly, and everyone else here, we have an abundance of time. This is not a thing running out on us. Essential time is the fundamental process, actually, of consciousness evolution. One baby step at a time. And the evidence is piling up in both camps that consciousness evolution does not have an end either. There's always a more knowledgeable perspective, another turn in our path to travel up or down, hopefully up. Growth in spiritual evolution has no end, and in fact makes us, what I might dare say, immortal. But we must hold fast to the ideal that this one corporeal lifetime cannot be a one and done. I say cannot, because it makes no sense in the logic of consciousness studies that I can tell, or modern science, or for anyone who has eyes to see. Another myth, totally exposed now, is not logical or real, is the idea that there is no real falsifiable, that's the science term for verifiable, evidence of consciousness. What? This is hogwash. This we know now with many proven experiments in all the disciplines, from biology, psychology, to multiple quantum mechanical experiments. The evidence has been in for decades. And in the footnotes, if anyone wants me to point me to these experiments, just let me know. Just like it took 200 years after we had the empirical evidence and was available for everyone that the earth was not flat to become common knowledge. But today we have the instant worldwide communication and the ability to educate ourselves. It should not, and it will not, take that long for this to happen. We need to stay vigilant, though. We also know from proven empirical documentation now that consciousness is fundamental. An example, Darwinian selection that required many centuries of random mutations with the hope that one would occur that's needed cannot explain the many documented occurrences of single species. One example of butterflies coming off ships in London from Africa, fundamentally altering their physical characteristics in a very short time span because it needed to in order to survive. It's not possible under Darwinian selection. It requires centuries or millennia for random mutations to produce such changes. Another clear example of this is the Cambrian explosion, if you ever care to look into it. Consciousness is clearly involved in these changes because, as modern biology knows now, Darwin's research was very, very good. But his conclusions were wrong. We can see modern objective research being done today by people such as Stephen C. Meyer, who has period scientific science behind the argument for intelligent design. Meyer has calculated, I like this because I'm kind of a numbers guy, but Meyer has calculated the odds of any of these events of sudden changes, species changes, occurring would be in the random odds of 10 to the minus 70. That is 1 in 8 billion, approximately. Now, to put that into perspective, science considers anything, objective science considers anything more than 10 to the minus 40 to be practically impossible within the system of the universe, right, of the odds of anything occurring. These events become, science says, mysteriously, non-random. Of course they become non-random. Consciousness leads and the mind and body follows. It's the same for butterflies, puppy dogs, and speakers at Unity. In the human story, one of the best examples we can give, I think anyway, is of Mahatma Gandhi and his interactions with the British in the early 20th century. The newspaper, the Times of India, sent a reporter to interview Gandhi. This was about 6 months after they had acquired their independence, and I found out, looking into it, about 3 weeks before he was murdered. They got him, they interviewed him, and they outright asked him, Mahatma Gandhi, how did you get the British to give up their most prized colonial possession? How did you get them to leave? He was very succinct, and he did not pause. He said, quote, "It was not what we did, although that was very, very important. It was not even what we said to the British in the world, although that was very significant too. He said it was that the Indian people themselves had a change in consciousness and character. That," he said, "allowed the British to choose to leave India." Notice he said choose. "We could act no other way," he said. And that's also He said the quote, "That's all that happened," he said. Some all, right? Consciousness can and does change the world. Couple brief suggestions on my part. Observing my own behavior over the last many decades, I can see where I held myself back. I'm a slow learner, and this took me decades to get. But when I looked in my mind's eye, I thought I was progressing along. I still felt stuck. Many of us feel that way. I ended up in this state for many years. I only realized later where I went astray. It was, in fact, in my haste to progress, in my worldly and other ways, I carried with me a little duffel bag in my back that I thought were my virtuous goodies, I'm trucking along. But in fact, I had left behind, or when I looked at it carefully, I actually skipped right over one of the most important aspects of my life for myself, and that was my appreciation. I did not stop to appreciate, which includes understanding, by the way, how I got to where I was, who had and who was helping me get there, and what specifically was my responsibility therein. So take time to appreciate always. Next, briefly, I put in the list of our work is to reduce, or better said, control our fundamental fears that we all have that limit our ability in growth. We're not talking here, or maybe we are, but I hope not talking about our fear of spiders or horror movies or door-to-door salesmen. Well, I find that scary now, but anyway, we're talking more about death and rejection and the fundamental fears of basic security, loss of face, as the Asians might say. Work on identifying your basic fears and learn to master them. We all remember, I think, this figure, Marie Curie, better known as Madame Curie. She was the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different distinct disciplines, one in chemistry and one in physics. It's amazing, right? She's quoted as saying, "Nothing in life is to be feared, only understood. Now is the time to understand," she said. "Now is the time to understand more so that we may all fear less," she said. Also, something I've been weak on, I was weak on, speak up about how you feel and what you see is needed in the world, and speak up for others who may need a voice and are not heard. Speak up even in places where you risk disagreement, even ridicule. Look for synchronicities. These are not merely coincidences, they are meant to be and given to you as guidance. Pay attention. Work on your ability to heal. Healing, of course, does not mean that we will always be in some objective, perfect physical condition. Of course not. State of healing is more, the way I see it, like we talked about joy. It needs to be more of a place in the heart and a state of mind. It's more recognizing the source of vitality and tapping into it every day of our lives. We can still be healthy then, with any of our physical constraints. Remembering that most of us don't heal because we don't remember the magic of forgiveness to cleanse. Some of us don't heal because we run away from nature. We don't enjoy the rain, we don't go out in the woods, we don't bathe in the sea, and some of us hide from the sun and the moon. As the Fillmore said, learn to heal. And lastly, I put on this list is freedom. Just a great English word, is it not, to say freedom? The other language is not as good. The dominion of free people and ideas. However, in my humble view, insofar as we are not conscious, we are not free. Freedom must be for all people and everywhere for us to succeed in any new renaissance. In the big picture, freedom is a matched set with consciousness. No freedom, no consciousness evolution, sorry. Rejoice is the theme for the month, and rebirth is our renaissance. May we bless each other so that we may rejoice in others' growth. We will all grow when we all grow. That's the way it works. I want to finally express my appreciation for the help and understanding and the teachings I've garnered by being a small part really, of Unity of Calgary. This is why I want to remind us today of our lineage. We are a long string of people who have always had grasp on big pictures, physical and otherwise. So anyone you know is looking for a vehicle to real being growth, this is it. As I stand here today, I'd be sorely lacking in any strength and perspective to have any of the little bit of growth I have without this group and its people. I know that sounds a little bit like a disclaimer or something, but I think it is a little bit, just in case I get hit by a truck or something, I wanted to say that. Finally, all the evidence is in, so it's not like we don't have the information. Headline reads, "We are not human beings having a spiritual journey. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are all doing the best we can with what we have." And remember also, nothing is too wonderful to be true. We can do this together. Just don't forget to bring the important things with you, and always just take it one step at a time. Now it's our time to move to our period of meditation. Let's all get comfortable in our chairs and close our eyes. Relax your body. Begin with your feet. Slowly move your intention to relaxation up your body. Relaxing each part as you go, slowly. And begin to recognize your breathing. Take one deep breath in and slowly release. Begin now gently releasing the grip of the physical on ourselves. Become very still. Go, if you wish, to your sacred spot and sit yourself comfortably there. Here, just simply give thanks. Thanks for all of our experiences, as we recognize them to be lessons and blessings all at the same time. And also feel the appreciation of things that you may have left behind. Dwell on this for a few moments. Now raise yourself up, and again proceed to gently return to this room. Open your eyes. Remembering that this is our home, this is our place to learn and grow.